All right, Bigger Pockets people, you asked for it, and we're doing it. We're talking cash out refinance today. If you know what it is, you know. If you don't, buckle up. Let's hit an intro. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the cash out refinance or cash out refi. It's basically Christmas when you're able to do with this property. It means it's gone up in value enough that you can take some equity and you can play with it. Now, to keep things simple, we're gonna do an example on Excel. We're gonna do a building that's worth $1 million. It's increased to 1.5 million, and we'll kind of run through the scenarios. What I see on YouTube is I see a lot of videos that go a little too much into the weeds, and then you start losing people. Then other ones that are just kind of explanatory notes on what a refinance is. Hopefully after this video, number one, you'll know what a cash refinance is, and number two, you'll know what to do with that money when you do get it. All right, let's get into it. Okay, you're looking at a bunch of values right now. Don't worry about these. We're gonna go through them one by one. We're gonna show you exactly what happened here in this scenario. So firstly, look on the side here. What I've done is I've taken value of the property that you purchased. So you purchased a property in 2015. The property value was $1 million. The mortgage was $800,000, which means that you had a 20% down payment. Don't worry so much about the actual numbers here. This will apply to all different numbers. I just figured nice big numbers, keep everything simple. So that's a $200,000 down payment, a 20% down payment. That was 2015. Now, if you go down a little bit further, I didn't want to get bogged down in expenses and all this other stuff, so I already just put the annual NOI. And what I'm going to do, again, to keep it super simple, 10% cap rate, which would be $100,000 NOI on $1 million value property. Now, if you go down a little bit further, I've already also calculated this. Again, general numbers. We have a mortgage at 4.5%. I think I amortized it 25, maybe 30 years. I think it was 25 though. So what we're left with after is a cash flow before taxes of $49,000 and change. So that is simple. That's 2015. Okay, fast forward, the value has increased. It's 2019. You're super happy about it. You've got $1.5 million in increase. You must be in California, Toronto, San Francisco. Anyways, you've got a great run. Now, the mortgage has stayed the same, right? Because nothing's changed there. But the equity has increased. The current equity was 200. You've added 500, so now you have 700 here. Now what I've done is it's reasonable to think that from 2015 to 2019, the value has increased, then the actual NOI has increased as well. So let's take a look at that. You've got $100,000 in 2015, and then you have $115,000 increase. Now, you could make that anything you want. The reality is it would depend on the market. But let's just say that it's increased by 15%. Your mortgage hasn't changed, right? It's that same 4.5%. We left that as is. But what has changed is your cash flow. Your cash flow has increased. Now, what I want you to check out here, this is a cap rate of 10%. And you might say, okay, well, what's happening here? The cap rate's gone down. And if you remember, the cap rate is inverse to the value. So when the value goes up, the cap rate goes down. What we call that on the commercial end or generally is cap rate compression. So what that is telling you is that if somebody tried to buy your property today based on these numbers, they wouldn't get that awesome deal that you got, that 10% yield. They'd be now at 7.67. So that's great. You're in a great spot here. Just one problem. You've made $500,000 increase. You don't want to sell your property, but you kind of want to use that money. And that's the whole point of a cash out refinance. It's to get money out of a property that has either increased by just time or has forcibly increased in a BRRRR strategy, or you've increased the net operating income by a great amount. So what we're going to do is talk about what I find a lot of videos don't do is they don't figure out, okay, well, how do we calculate what we can take out of this property? So as we said before, we had a 20% down payment. Now, this particular bank does not allow you to have a loan to value that's any more leverage than 80-20, right? So that's 80 to 20%. What we do have down, like I said, is 20%. So we need to keep that mortgage. We can take out money, but we can only take so much that we still have that remainder of equity of 20%. So the way to calculate that is we come down here. this seems like it's more complicated than it is. It's actually really simple. So let's check this out. Available equity, the way you calculate that is you take the new value, so the 1.5 mil, which is this guy right here, you multiply that by the 80%, right? That's the most the bank will let you take out because you got to have that 20% left. And then you minus the current mortgage you have, because the bank's saying, all right, listen, we're going to give you that 80%. We're going to give you that check. They don't really give you the check, but soon they give you the check. Then you got to pay off the current mortgage. Now the current mortgage, like we mentioned, is up here, right? That's $800,000. So I already did the math here, and basically what that means is you have an available equity here of $400,000. Now don't worry about the interest payment right now, but that's basically the most that you can take out of this property. And just to double check, we go down here, the equity remaining. So if we take that $400,000 and we add it to the current mortgage, right? That's 1.2 million. Now we had a value of 1.5 million, right? Minus, stay with me, the 1.2 million that is our total debt, right? That's the total mortgage now. So the remainder is 300,000. Now 300,000 in equity divided by the total value here, boom, 20%. So we're good. We've got 20% left in this property, so now we can scroll back up here. And what we've done now is we've gone from the value increase and we've moved over to this portion here. So this is where I think there's a bit of a disconnect. People talk about what you can take out, but then the question is, what do you do with that 400,000? Now, in a real life scenario, that 400,000, you would probably, if you looked at another property that you liked and you wanted to go use that, you could take that money and maybe you put $100,000 down on a property, 20% again, and use that 400,000 as your mortgage. I want to keep it super simple. So instead, what we're going to do with that $400,000 is we're actually going to buy a property with 100% leverage. So we're not putting any equity. Now, it's not as realistic, but I just want you to understand what's happening here, and it's easier to do the numbers this way. So you bought a property, let's call it a duplex. You got a duplex for $400,000. Now, what I've done here is, so see this annual net operating income. I've made an assumption here. I'm assuming, since it's 2019, let's say it's 2019 here now. Okay, so it's still 2019. We're going to look at properties at $400,000, and the question is, well, what kind of yield are you going to get in this market? We're going to assume it's the same market, same year. Well, what I'm going to do actually, see this 7.67%? I'm going to use that as the market yield. It's not going to be 10% anymore, right? That was back in the day when life was good, properties were cheap. Now we're a little compressed, right? The yields aren't as high. So I'm going to say that this property is only going to generate the current yield, which is 7.67%. That's going to give us $30,000. Now, I've already done the mortgage calculation on this. So the mortgage on that $400,000, we're going to have $25,000, and that's our annual payment. And what I should mention here is this mortgage payment, when you do a refinance, oftentimes the mortgage percentage, the rate changes. Now, if the cap rates have gone down, interest rates don't always follow cap rates, but if cap rates have gone down, it's possible mortgage rates have also come down, but I'm not going to make any assumptions about the actual rate. Let's just leave it as is. It could be higher, it could be lower. Let's call it a 4.5% again to keep the numbers simple. But you could have got a better rate depending on where things are, or the bank maybe elect to be more bullish on this deal because they can increase the rates. So either way, let's call that 4.5%. So let's keep it really simple. Annual NOI is $30,000 on your duplex, and your mortgage payment is $25,000. So you look back at cash flow before taxes, and you're like, I don't know, that's not that good. Like, okay, it's good. I mean, it's cash, but it's not as good as some of what I was seeing over here. And even if you divide the million by 2, you're still at around 25. Where this one, you're only getting 5. But that's not the whole story when it comes to refinancing. You have to look at these two things as a whole now. You have to look at the property you have, the income there, the cash out, and what is the result of that? So this is the after refinance. So basically what we've done here is that the value, so the actual value is still 1.5 million, okay? Because we took debt out and purchased something with debt. So now we have an asset that's equal to the amount of debt, so it cancels itself out if you remember, counting 101 in terms of equity. However, you do have another property, so you are earning income on that other property. So what we have now, after the refinance, is we have our current property, we have a duplex, we have 1.5 million in value, we have 1.2 million in debt, right? Because we still have that $300,000 as our equities, 20%. And now what I did here was this figure is adding these two figures, what we're making on our current property, what we're making on the new property. Okay, so now we're up at 145,000 and change. And also kind of weighted averaging the annual mortgage, because the mortgage now is not just the 50,000, it's the 25 plus the 50. That's 75,000. And you can already see why a lot of people don't do these videos, because if you had two different rates, or if you had more complications with the mortgage or a blended rate, the math, it starts getting a little bit hard to follow in this kind of format. So we kept that simple. So now the debt payments are 75. But here's the really cool thing, is you come down here is this 9.71%. And what is that? That is the cap rate. So that's your yield. So you've now taken this 7.67, right? You had all that money in there, but you didn't have it working for you. You took that money, you got it working for you again, and now when you combine both of those properties, your yield has now gone up again. And that's the whole point. And that's why this idea of paying off your mortgage when it comes to rental properties, not that, if you feel psychologically better doing that, more power to you. But that's the whole beauty of real estate, that if you can manage it and you can take equity out in the form of a cash out refinance and buy more property, and you can do it while still staying above water and being prudent and not going crazy, it's a great tool. So that's it, guys. It's if there's any questions, if there's anything that you want me to go into more detail, I'd be happy to do it. But this is really what it comes down to, the simplest way I can explain it, and I hope that came across as relatively simple. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment below, and I'll try to address those. Thanks, guys. All right, I hope that is clear as mud. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, leave a comment below. If you have any areas that you want me to go into a little bit more depth, be happy to do that. Subscribe, hit the like button, and Jesse Vergali out. We'll catch you next time.